Everybody, and welcome back. Today we are going to listen to a Gen Z, I guess, person talk about their economic concerns.
Something respectfully, and you know what, actually also a little bit disrespectfully. If you were not born after like 19
All right, so you can't be respectful and disrespectful at the same time. I think that's an oxymoron, but okay, keep going.
90, I am not going to take financial advice from you. Like, I am not going to listen to you when you talk to me about how to be financially successful. And I feel like that's going to trigger a lot of older people. But I just want to be so clear that the economy that you experience, and I'm not saying that you never experienced a tough economy. No one is saying that. The economy has ebbed and flowed for a long time. The one I'm most familiar with would be the 2008 financial crisis. Like,
All right, so putting an age cutoff on when you're going to listen to someone about financial advice or how to be financially successful is ridiculous. And I say that because if you do that, you're cutting off an entire, well, several generations, at least two, of really solid advice. And granted, I get what she's saying that there are definitely economic factors that are different now than there were previously. And I'm someone who lived through the 2008 crisis, and I was around for the dot-com bubble, and I think I was probably being a kid when the 87 crash happened. The point I'm trying to make is that all generations have economic struggles. They have things that they're going to have to work through and things that are not going to be easy. And I will grant that this generation has maybe more on their plate or a bigger challenge per se as we kind of wade into this world of AI, but that doesn't mean that previous generations can't give you good advice. I mean, advice is, relative, right? Like who's giving the advice? If it's just, someone who said work at one company for 50 years and retire with a pension, okay, yeah, I think you can throw that out. But advice that say, I don't know, Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger gave on investing, I think still very much is relevant today. So I think it depends on where it's coming from. I think you need to filter in and filter out the good with the bad, just like anything in life. You have to decide what you're going to believe and what you're not going to believe. And ultimately, every generation has to figure out a way to survive. I mean, there was a generation that went through the Depression where they were living on potato soup and like bouillon cubes, and it was horrible. And that generation produced the baby boomers, and they had their set of challenges, they had their wars, they had their economic struggles, maybe not as much or as bad as the last, but you kind of have to just play the hand you're dealt. You can't complain about it. And I think maybe that's the problem that I see is I see a lot of people complaining about these things, but I don't see anybody taking any actual action. I don't see anybody coming up with solutions, and I don't see anyone trying to make things better for themselves. I just see these videos of people complaining. Let's continue.
I think a lot of older millennials were really screwed over by that. So I just want to preface this with no one is saying that you did not like struggle underneath a terrible economy. No one's saying that. But what I am
All right, at least she admitted that other generations have had terrible economies, so I'll give her that.
saying is that the current economy that people who were born in like 1994 onward are living under is completely different than anything we have navigated before. And the rules are not the same in this one.
I would agree with that, but I would again go back to everything that any generation has experienced is going to be different, and the rules are always going to be different. There was a time when you could be a television repair person, and that was good work. And now we just throw TVs away and buy a new one. There was a time before email, there was a time before the internet, and things still got done, and people had to figure out a way to do business. And I'm not saying it's not getting more sophisticated, it absolutely is. And with AI, it's going to be really interesting how we harness that and use that for the future. But I think everyone's struggle is unique, and to call out your struggle as the most unique is a little short-sighted.
And okay, like the rules are not the same. And sometimes when people from older generations try to give me financial advice, I just look at them and I'm like, that literally doesn't matter anymore. Like that's actually not a thing anymore. Or advice that I'd be like, well, yeah, that would be an amazing piece of advice 25 years ago. But regrettably, that has nothing to do with our current moment. The budget.
I hope she's like pointing out things of like, get a good job and get a pension, because yeah, that makes no sense anymore. But again, who's the advice coming from? Is it Warren Buffett? Is it someone who's been wildly successful? Is it someone trying to, give you a nugget of, hey, maybe don't go buy a brand new car and sign up for a ridiculously large, payment, or don't buy too much of a house if you can afford a house even. Things like that. Again, you've got to like filter in and out the good and the bad, just like anything.
Advice I see, like the advice people give to afford childcare, it's just like you all were playing with a completely different stack of cards. And no one's saying that your stack of cards perhaps did not give you some challenges, but the deck of cards was different. It was just different. You do not know what it is like to be in your 20s under our current economy, like a post-pandemic economy, an unfettered corporate greed economy, like the way that the costs are rising economy, the AI economy. Like there's just.
She's right. We have not been in our 20s in that situation, but she has not been in her 20s when my generation was in their 20s coming up. And we did not know, hey, is this 2008 thing going to last forever? How far down is the market going to go? I remember, what was it? JP Morgan stock got down to like $20 or something. Like it was crazy. It was wild times, and everybody was very uncertain. And unfortunately, I think that just goes with growing up in general. And there's not a whole lot you can do other than make the best of it and keep kicking and use the resources and the people and tools that are available to do the best you can. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's absolutely difficult, but I think it's doable too.
So many different factors at play right now. And what I would love to see older generations do is, instead of like making fun of people my age for being poor or for struggling financially or for looking at us weird when we say like, no, I don't have $10,000 in my bank account, right? Like,
all right, so nobody should be making fun of people who are struggling financially. I'm convinced that anyone struggling financially didn't do it on purpose. They didn't set out to be where they're at. So I agree with her wholeheartedly there. And people being shocked that you don't have $10,000 in your account. Look at the average salary for an American. Not having $10,000 in a bank account is the norm. Is if you've got that, you're the exception to the rule, not the rule, at least by averages. I mean, maybe where you live, depending on, what area, that could be, more common, but for overarching, no, not at all.
savings. No, I don't have that. Is, instead of trying to give out of touch and outdated advice, just listen. Just listen. Maybe read like an article from a news source or an economist would be maybe good, and maybe show.
All right. I think she's being a little condescending here. Yes, it is good to listen. I do agree with that. But the whole maybe read an article from like an economist, I think that's a little bullshit. Maybe it's not bullshit, but you could have said it a little nicer. There's definitely some there's some angst in her tone there. You can tell she's tired of having people tell her, what do you mean you don't have this? What do you mean you don't have that? And it's showing. And I don't blame her. I get it. It would be grating. And I have looked at different articles, and I know how difficult it is if you look at, how much a house costs compared to the median wage, 30, 40 years ago compared to a house cost today, and the wage, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare at all. And there will be an entire generation, unfortunately, who will not be able to own their home because of, well, lots of factors. I feel like that's a completely different video, but there's lots of reasons for that. And let's just say the government isn't helping us out.
Some empathy instead of trying to be like, well, we also had it really hard. So, and we figured it out because we're just amazing. Because it's almost like you're suggesting that people our age are not, figuring it out. And we are working 3 jobs, watching our grocery bills go up, watching our healthcare costs go up, unable to get jobs, like applying to hundreds of jobs and still getting like no interviews, delaying having children because childcare costs are out of control, like $2,500 to $3,000 a month for one child. And yet you all are pressuring us. You're like, why don't you guys have kids? You guys are so selfish. We're actually the least selfish because we're not bringing children into the world that we can't afford. Not to mention,
I appreciate that. If you can't afford childcare, man, that would be incredible. And it was, unfortunately, childcare has just gone up substantially. I remember it being high when I was first getting into the workforce. I had colleagues who had children in daycare, and it was like a per minute fee if you were late. It was insane. I could not fathom how much it was if and when you were not there to pick up your kid like instantaneously. Like it blew my mind. And I think, well, I know it's just gotten worse. So sooner or later, something's going to have to break. There's got to be some sort of like tipping point, right? Because people are still finding ways to have children, but I think maybe more responsible people are maybe holding off on having kids because they know, hey, we're not going to be able to, maybe live the life that we would like to, or even just afford to feed the kid. And that's a valid concern.
that over 1/3 of people under the age of 30 have had to move back in with their parents. Like that's a wild statistic. Like maybe just talk to a few young people, figure out what's going on that way. Let yourself be open to believing that other people also are struggling. And my preference is actually that I think generations should actually care what happens to each other. I know that's controversial, but I do think that that is important. I don't know.
I would agree with that. Generations should definitely care what happens to the next generation or the generation before them, because if you don't, then we won't have any generations left for things to keep going. And I would say that most parents automatically care about the next generation. I think maybe the time when things get weird is when you have like a stranger or like an overarching faceless person or faceless group of people, when we lump everybody into millennial and Gen Z and Gen X and all that. And there's that, I guess, natural or maybe non-natural comparison, or the way we did it, that kind of thing. Because I think previous generations got that from their parents and their grandparents, and so I'm not saying it's right, but it's something that it's something that kind of perpetuates itself, and it probably shouldn't.
What do I know? I ate an avocado toast this morning and I'm feeling spicy. So can I say
She ate an avocado toast this morning and she's feeling spicy. I didn't realize that avocado toast meant you could feel spicy. That's new to me. I will have to give it some avocado toast and see if it makes me feel as spicy as she was this particular morning. So what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Do you agree with her? Do you agree with me? Am I full of it? Do I need to look at a different perspective? Do I need to read some articles and talk to more people? Because I get that it's difficult all over, and I know plenty of people who have multiple jobs and they're just getting by. And unfortunately, I think there is a disconnect between the middle class and like the ultra wealthy. I think the middle class is shrinking, and I think the ultra wealthy are getting wealthier. And I don't know what you do about that. I know you can say taxes, but that never seems to do anything. And I think, what is it? Elon's now a trillionaire. That's a lot of money, and he creates a heck of a lot of value. And I don't know any better system than capitalism, but at the same time, you'd think we'd be able to balance out, hey, we don't have people going hungry. Hey, we don't have people unable to afford homes that want homes. Hey, we can't afford childcare. So what do you think? What's the answer? What's the not the one thing, but like what's a good place to start? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Later.